Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about the part of the writing process called revising and editing. So the first thing I want you to do is to go to your writing section of your notebook, make sure you're in the writing section, and glue in your note taker. It has your revise versus edit and all the notes that we're going to go over today. At this time, if you will also grab a red and a green either marker or colored pencils, please, because we are going to use those to mark up our notes. All right, so let's start with revise. The first thing I want you to do is outline all of that in green. We're using green for this because green means go, and revise is the first step that you need to do. Okay, once you're done, you can resume the video, press play again, and then we'll continue. All right, so let's go over what revising means. First of all, when you revise your writing, it means that you make it sound better. That means that you need to hear the writing to see if all the sentences and words that you chose sound the best way that they could in your writing. Okay, so the acronym that we use for this is ARMS. The A stands for adding words or sentences. Sometimes when you read it, you realize that there might be a sentence missing to make it make better sense, or words that you can add to it to complete the sentence. The R stands for remove. Sometimes we also see that there's words that keep being repeated, or a sentence that really says the same thing as one you said before, and you can remove that one. The M stands for move. You might realize that one of the sentences is out of order and it would sound better in a different place, so this is where you would do that. And then the S is substitute. We substitute words or sentences for others. This is where you're looking for those vivid details, those words that really paint a picture in your head. Instead of using pretty or smart or fun or cool, you can use better adjectives to describe what you're trying to describe that will really paint a picture in the reader's head. So in order to revise with a partner, you would have your partner reading their text out loud to you. You wouldn't have anything in your hands. You would just be listening to what they're reading and deciding whether it sounds good or not. I suggest you do it one paragraph at a time. Okay? You read one paragraph and then decide if it sounds good. If you're ready to move on and that one didn't need any changes, then you go on to the next paragraph. They read that one out loud, you listen, and you decide if there's anything that they should change in that one. And on until you get to the end. Remember that you have 5 paragraphs, so it should take you 5 different stops and feedback to tell your partner what you think they should either add, remove, move, or substitute. Alrighty, that brings us to edit. Here we're going to use the color red because this is where we stop. This is the second phase after revising. So when we edit, it means that we are trying to see if the writing looks correct. So when we were revising, we were trying to check if it sounds good. Now in edit, we check to see if it looks good. Okay, here we use the acronym CUPS. The C stands for capitalize. You have to check that you have the capital letters where they belong, especially at the beginning of sentences. Some of us still tend to forget that we need to capitalize whichever word is beginning our sentence. And of course, proper nouns, things like name, places, titles, months, and especially that letter I. There's still some of us that forget to capitalize the letter I, which is actually a word when it's by itself. Okay. The next one is usage. Here we're looking to make sure that we're matching the nouns and verbs correctly. Remember, we have learned about how the nouns and verbs need to agree with each other, and this is making sure that we're using them right. The P stands for punctuation. So we have several different punctuations that we need to make sure we use. One that doesn't have on here is the apostrophe. Remember, for contractions like can't, don't, won't, we need to use the apostrophe. And also for possessives, when you're talking that something belongs to somebody else, this is my dad's favorite car. You need the apostrophe there. And you need to make sure that you don't have punctuation where it doesn't belong. If you're talking about a plural, like puppies, there was more than one puppy, then you should not have an apostrophe S there. And you need to make sure that you are concluding your sentences with the correct punctuation. That if it's a question, it uses a question mark. And then if it's an exclamation, something showing strong emotion, you use the exclamation mark. And then, of course, our quotation marks for dialogue. And finally, the S is for spelling. Okay, you need to make sure you check all of your words that they are spelled correctly. Now, sometimes you might not be sure whether how the word is spelled. In that case, you can just circle it, and then your partner can figure out with somebody else or use a dictionary to find the word. Remember, you can also ask Alexa to help you with the spelling only when it is absolutely necessary. Alrighty, so on the left side of your notebook, now we're going to write some of the editing marks. These are the marks that you're going to use to show the mistakes that are written in the paper. So what we do for the editing and revising is that we use a colored pencil to mark anything that we are wanting to change. This helps the person that the writing belongs to see the mistakes a little more clearly when they're having to change them. So use a colored pencil that is a bright color. Here I'm going to leave these in red because that's the color we're using for editing. All right, so the first mark that I want to talk about is capitalizing. Whenever you see a letter that needs to be capitalized, all you're going to do is put the 3 lines under it. That just means that you need to capitalize that letter. When you need to insert a period or other punctuation, we just put the period at the end of the sentence and circle it so that it is noticeable. Whenever we want to insert any other word or sentence, we just use a little arrow, and above the arrow, you write whatever it is that you think should be inserted there. Sometimes we forget those indentations at the beginning of the paragraph, and if that happens, you put this symbol to represent an indentation that's missing. Now, if you come across a word or a part of the writing that you need to omit, that means to remove it, we do a little curly dash on top of the word or sentence. And then finally, if there is a word that you want to check the spelling for, all we do is just circle the word, and that tells us to check the spelling because you're not sure how it's supposed to be spelled. Okay, so all these editing marks should be written on the left side of your notebook. So now that we've reviewed what needs to be done, actually first with editing, sorry, I didn't go over this part. With editing, you actually do need to just trade papers with your partner. You give them your paper and they give you theirs. And then you just read through it and mark any of the mistakes that you find that need to be corrected. On this part, you don't have to read it out loud. You just have to look at the writing to see what's missing, okay? Once you're done watching this video, now you're going to get with your Pam Munoz Ryan partner to first revise your writing. Remember, this is where you have to listen to it. One paragraph at a time, your partner is just reading you their writing and you're listening to see how it sounds, if there's anything they need to change. Then you're going to edit your writing. This is where you trade papers and you look at the writing, you read through it and see if there's any mistakes that they need to fix. Both of these things you need to do with a colored pencil, okay? Once you're done editing and revising, reread your writing. Make sure that the changes that you guys decided on making actually do make sense and sound good with what you're trying to say. If you end up finishing doing all of that with enough time, then you may begin publishing. You need to grab the sheet of paper with the 2 holes at the top and write your paper all over again, nice and neat, but this time including the changes that you and your partner decided on making. Okay, this is the paper you're going to turn in for a final grade, but you are going to turn in both copies, the final paper and the one that you revised and edited on, so I can see how well you all did. Okay, thank you. Bye.